Good day, fellow Jersey Nerds, and welcome to episode 83 of the Jersey Nerds podcast. I'm your host, Ryan. Today on the Nerdcast, it's a very special episode as we'll be going over the first jerseys, new jerseys that we've seen for the 2019-2020 NHL season. Now, we touched on the Vancouver Canucks leak when it came out a couple weeks ago, but now we've seen officially all four jerseys that they're going to be going with for the upcoming season, so that's very exciting. We'll be going over that. Plus, the St. Louis Blues are your 2019 Stanley Cup Champions. We're going to be looking at the locker room hat and shirt that were given out to the team. Of course, there's towels and flags, and we go on and on because there's endless merchandise for people to buy. But specifically, we're going to be looking at the hat and shirt that were given out to the players in the locker room. We also have Fake or Authentic and Throwback Throwdown joining us for this ordeal into Vancouver and St. Louis hockey are Sean, Steve, and Beepo. Sean, what's going on?
You know what? I'm doing great. I'm happy St. Louis won a cup. A lot of former Leafs and a former Jets great, and just a lot of guys on that team. I'm really happy to have a cup. But, you know, being the East Coast, but very much so a raised in the Toronto area guy, man, am I happy right now for that sport where you throw a ball at a hoop.
Ah, yes, the ball hoopers. It went well for the ball hoopers, the Dino Hoopers. We'll get into that in a bit. Also joining us, Steve. What's going on, Steve?
Oh, not much, Ryan. Just recording a podcast with you, Beepo, and Sean. What about you?
I'm going through the struggles.
All right, Steve. All right, Steve.
You stole Beepo's line.
Stealing his thunder.
Well, let's get to Beepo. Beepo, what's going on?
Merely implanting my vocal seed into digital data for consumption, Ryan. How about you?
That sounded dirty and nerdy all at the same time. So that was.
I think it was like Sunday. I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna take the words that I usually use and find synonyms for them and make it and do that. Like those increasingly verbose memes, kind of. I love those memes. Also, might I add, the St. Louis Blues are Stanley Cup champions for the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history.
What a stat. That's a baseball stat. That's like one of those very specific baseball stats where this guy is hitting 50% against left-handers on the West Coast during afternoon games. That's that type of stat. But as we mentioned...
Are you making fun of sabermetrics?
Yes, I can't stand baseball and the stupid stats, and that's cute that they have their own name. That's fun. Old people love those stats. But anyways...
That's the only reason why the Oakland Athletics are like surviving, why they can compete, is because of that.
I thought it was because Brad Pitt is their general manager.
No, he played in the movie.
Oh, did he get fired?
I don't think Billy Beane actually got fired. I think they care about him too much to fire him.
I'm talking about Brad Pitt. Who's talking about Billy Beane? Jeez, guys. You guys got to get your...
Oh, my God. You are a terrible baseball fan.
I am not a baseball fan. Unless someone is paying for the tickets and willing to drink lots of beer, then I can pretend to be a baseball fan. You know what I was pretending to be? Was a basketball fan. I will fully admit, living in the Toronto area, I was along for the ride. Sean mentioned it. Raptors, NBA champions. Sean, how did you react the other night when the Raptors won in 6 games against the Warriors?
So I've watched every Raptors playoff game this year since about game 3 of the quarterfinals. That's a lot of basketball, and it's more basketball than I normally watch. And I definitely grew up a Raptors fan. You know, they're my hometown team. You know, I'll always root for them. And, you know, how do I put this? Growing up in Toronto when I did, so, you know, from the early 2000s till about 2014, there was no good Toronto sports team. That's true. Just a fact. That's just a fact. The Leafs were good for maybe a couple seasons, but then the lockout happened. The Raptors would make the playoffs every couple of years maybe and lose in the first round. The Blue Jays were terrible. You know, if you like the Argos, maybe they were doing all right. And the closest NFL team, the Bills, were terrible during that era. So, you know, to see the Raptors win and, you know, to know that this is the first major sports win they've had since the Blue Jays in 93. And let me tell you, in Toronto, that's such a big deal people who were around then could name depth guys on that roster. There are guys who can name depth guys on the 67 Leafs. You know, when you win a championship in Toronto, your name is immortalized. And I'll admit, I got a fair bit emotional, without, intentionally or not. There were tears in my eyes as the Raptors won, like when the final second went down. It still doesn't actually feel real to me right now.
Yeah, I hear you. The parade might cement that. The parade has yet to take place as of this recording, but it's coming up. Beepo, you're an American, but you're wearing your Raptors jersey during this podcast. Anybody who subscribes to the video feed would know that, and that's how we're...
And how much does this video feed cost, Ryan?
Just for this episode, we've lowered the price to $129.99 for every half hour, but that's going to go up. So you got to get into the early bird special, which is going on now. But as I was saying, you're an American. Sometimes there's this inferiority complex on the part of Toronto teams of how they're perceived outside of Toronto and namely in the States. Just what was the feeling there when the Raptors did win the NBA championship?
Well, let's see. I've been a Raptors fan for approximately 2 to 3 weeks. I feel like I explained before that the Steve Dangle podcast is the reason I started following the NBA Finals this year. But I was surprised at how much I actually got into it over the course of the Finals. Like, towards the end of that game, my heart was actually really beating. I'm really surprised. So I think there's a new basketball fan in me come next season.
All right.
I actually already ordered a new Kyle Lowry jersey from Full Moon Jerseys, not for very expensive. I figured I might as well get the jersey of a player that I actually know. I don't really know who this Marco Bellinelli guy is, aside from the fact that I looked him up because I have his jersey. But also, might I say, for the first time, whenever the Toronto Raptors were in Game 7 of the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors, leading 111 to 110 with 9 seconds left in the game, the Raptors are NBA champions. That's a specific stat, isn't it? Also, for the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history, the Raptors are NBA champions.
Is that your barometer for everything? If it's happening in Vegas Golden Knights' existence?
Quite frankly, it's just a meme on Reddit that I'm spreading elsewhere because that's what I do. I just shitpost all day long.
Spread your shit elsewhere. Steve, I don't know how much of a basketball fan you are. You're wearing a hockey jersey for this hockey podcast, so that's appropriate. Unlike Sean and Beepo, who've gone Raptors jerseys. Any interest in?
It's warm here, okay, Ryan?
You know what, Ryan? Pittsburghers have a unusual relationship with professional basketball. For years, we were a college ball town. Pitt was unstoppable. Duquesne had some pretty good. Robert Morris, which is over by the airport out west, they were also good for. They went to the March Madness twice.
They didn't go to the NBA Finals though.
Yeah, not the NBA Finals, but no.
What is this, Space Jam? Like we're just making up rules? Like, oh yeah, bring up the college team, a replacement in the NBA Finals.
No, but honestly, speaking of these, I'm kind of happy that, and I don't want to come off sounding mean, but I am not a fan of teams forming dynasties and hitting multiple championships multiple years, or in the case of how it was with the Cavaliers and the Warriors. When I knew the Warriors were going to get back in because they just somehow know how to get into the championship. But when I saw Toronto in there and I saw how good Toronto had done, it gave me some faith that quite possibly that the Warriors were lending on borrowed time. But I think it also has to do with the fact that the Warriors, this is their fifth straight
final.
Isn't it fifth?
Sorry, fifth.
Yeah, fifth straight.
Fifth straight final. And you gotta imagine, just from a standpoint, to do what the Penguins did back in 16-17, to do that twice, you're playing how many extra games? You're playing 16 plus extra games a season. So then that's your shortened off season, and you're just beating yourself up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing run that the Warriors were on.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I commend them for going to the championship 5 years in a row. That's a hard feat in and itself, and that should be commended. But it just gets to the point to where it's like they're driving a car that caught on fire and the wheels are coming off at the same exact time.
Yeah, it's got hints of that dynasty coming to an end. Now, one of the funny things is whenever a Canadian team is in like the NBA Finals, which this was the first time ever, or if the Jays ever make the playoffs in baseball, it kind of throws a wrench into the U.S. TV ratings because they don't get credit for all of the Canadian ratings. The Canadian station gets credit for all the Canadian ratings. So, for example, if you have New York and Boston in a series, you're obviously going to have huge rating numbers in those two series, plus the rest of the country that also tunes in to watch. When you take away one of those markets, like when Toronto is in a playoff game, it takes away a huge chunk of ratings. So obviously all the U.S. networks aren't terribly happy when Toronto advances in any kind of playoffs, except for the NHL, where there's still a draw. But continuing on with ratings, obviously the Raptors were huge up here in Canada. And during Game 6, where they won the title, during the last minute of play, the audience peaked to the point where 44% of the country was watching that game during the last minute of play. So if you equate that into U.S. TV numbers, we're talking nearly 150 million people tuning in to watch a basketball game, which is kind of like Super Bowl numbers. So pretty impressive here. And the big talk is not just that the Raptors won, but also the impact that this should have at the grassroots level in Canada as far as basketball goes. So this is just more than a team winning an NBA championship. And that is probably the most basketball talk we will ever have on this podcast. We do have some hockey talk to get into and some hockey design talk specifically to get into. So let's get down to it.
Well, hey, Ryan, this podcast is called the Jersey Nerds Podcast, not the Hockey Jersey Nerds Podcast. So, hey,
we've already discussed this.
There's always room for expansion.
We've already discussed this. This is a topic that's not going to be taken care of tonight. Maybe further down the road. Thank you.
Beepo, if you want to do a solo podcast on other sports jerseys, we'll just tuck that at the end after the credits roll. Like after everyone's left the theater and the lights come up, all of a sudden Beepo comes on with his own little, it's the Beepo podcast. Beep, 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 beep. Anyways, let's get...
We need to make that into an actual theme song.
Okay, we'll work on that. Let's get to the jersey news of the week. So we have the Vancouver Canucks, who have shown us their 2019-2020 jerseys. The day after the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup, they're like, fine, fuck it, here we go. All 4 jerseys, all at once. No teasers, just throwing them out there. And they're all worth talking about. Now, we've seen the leak of the home jersey, and everything's been confirmed now. The Vancouver script has been removed. The shoulder patches with the recoloring has shown up, but now that we've gotten a closer look, we can see that the logo has been reformatted a little bit to have a little bit sharper angles, and the C in the stick and rink logo is a little bit more prominent now. On the road jersey, as I mentioned, Vancouver script gone. We thought we might see blue shoulder patches, but they're sticking with the white shoulder patches on the white jersey, which is a interesting choice, and we'll see what everyone thinks about that going forward. We got a brand new alternate jersey, which is based on their old original jersey. This uses the updated stick and rink logo, kind of a modified Vancouver font for the numbers, basic green stripes, and it is a blue jersey. And then, of course, as we knew, the spaghetti skate or skate on a plate or whatever, the 90s black, yellow, and red jersey is coming back in Adidas format. So if you want to take a look at these jerseys, you can head on over to hockeyjerseyconcepts.com or just check out the link in the episode description. But I'd like to end on the positives now. So let's hit on the negatives. We're going to look at these 4 jerseys as a whole set. And Sean, we're going to start with you.
Okay,
Ahem. Now, when it comes to the Canucks here, I think that where they really missed the mark is the alternate, right? So, the fact that there's no white in the striping when you got a big white collar and a big white logo, I can get where they're going for here, but just stick the white between the two greens and you got something really good there, and, maybe fix the collar. But it's distracting, and it probably would look a lot better, and I'd probably be more sold on it, especially from a vintage standpoint, if they didn't go for this weird off-color balancing that teams like to do here and there. On top of that, probably the other thing that bothers me is that the white shoulder patch on the blue jersey stands out, and then it doesn't on the white jersey, but I think it looks better when you got that sort of inverted, phantom shoulder patch look. So I think that they should have gone with the blue patch on the blue jersey.
All right, Beepo, looking at negatives of the whole set here.
Yeah, I mean, whenever these jerseys were leaked, at least the primary and the home and the road, I gave a lot of my thoughts on those, and I'm just going to rehash again that I think the font could use an improvement, but I don't hate it. And like Sean said, I think a blue shoulder patch would look so much better on the blue jersey, so that way it doesn't stick out and it doesn't draw your eye more than it should. It works perfectly on the white jersey. On the third jersey, I'm going to agree with Sean that I think there should either be one of two things changed. There should be some white in the stripes, or the collar should be green, or just blue. One or the other, because it's just too top-heavy with white, with the logo being white, the numbers being white, the collar being white, and there's no white down at the bottom. You either got to add that white down the bottom, or make the collar green to kind of balance that out and have it kind of green at the top, green at the bottom, and then a lot of white in the middle. I think that would work fine. And on the throwback jersey, the only problem I really have with it is the collar. And I mean, I'm not huge on the logo, but it's a direct throwback, so what are you going to do? I can only accept that. Just fix that collar, and also bring back the flying V. I want to see it. Not for warm-ups, just one game. I just want to see the flying V one more time.
It lost the vote. That's why they went with the spaghetti skate.
Because people are stupid. I also mentioned this. I think I mentioned it in the Slack chat. The response to these jerseys was really weird. On Reddit, on the thread that was posted on r/hockey, pretty much all of the responses were positive. Everybody loved all of the jerseys. And on Twitter, basically every response was, flying skate good, orca bad. I don't understand why there was such a discrepancy between each social media site. I think it's just because Twitter people like to be mad.
I can tell you shortly why that is.
Because Twitter people like to be mad?
Well, one, that, and two, a lot older people use Twitter compared to Reddit.
That's probably true.
Which I'll bring up my point in a second.
All right, well, let's go to you, Steve, for your negatives on this one.
My negatives. Honestly, overall, when it comes to the primaries, I feel like they didn't push far enough. I feel kind of like they just tried to minor tweak a jersey, which, like I've said before, just the jersey in itself really feels kind of stale. So with the alternate, it does bother me that they have just green striping with no white striping. But I understand, because if you see the jersey that the green stripes were based off of, it did have a white stripe in it, and it would have been really close to essentially a throwback if they had put that on there. But sometimes you just have to make that sacrifice, because when you're trying to add in I believe it was their blue alternate, their first blue alternate with the stick and rink logo from the Reebok era, when they're trying to do a collar like that with this, it's just strange. And also the collar on the throwback with the flying skate, that is a beautiful, beautiful design, beautiful jersey, beautiful logo. It is the far superior color scheme than the green and blue, in my opinion. But they hash up that collar again, and it's like you get like right to the edge of the finish line and you fall. And instead of getting up, you just sit there and cry like a toddler.
As far as negatives for me, I mentioned this when the leak came out, but I would just like the Canucks to do away with any kind of colored collar and just go with kind of a Nike style where there is no defined collar. I think that would work well for Vancouver on both the home and the road jersey. Now, on the alternate jersey, I like the way they've done to the necks, the way they've done the neck there. So I'll get to that. I really have no complaints at all about the alternate jersey. Really a fan of that one. Beepo mentioned, again, the neck on the retro, the spaghetti skate jersey. But the big thing for me there is the 50th anniversary patch. Why does that have to be there? Let's just put it on the helmet or something, or just put it at center ice, just get it off the jersey, and we can just do a real authentic kind of looking throwback there. It just kind of off-puts it. Sometimes I'm okay with it, but on this one, it just I'm not dealing with it very well. I do think there's a lot of positives, though, across the board on all four of these jerseys. So let's get to them. Sean, what are you liking about these?
I just think that when it comes to the progression of the Canucks jerseys, it's a couple years too late, but man, did they update their edge jerseys really nicely here. I'm a big fan of this. It's every update I could have asked for on the home and road. The white jersey still remains to be one of my favorites in the league. I just think that, this, honestly, I'd put them in the top 10 of the league right now for best home and road. I'm really happy to see the skate on a plate come back this year. It's not my favorite jersey in Vancouver history, but it's probably the best one they had, and it aged perfectly, so I'm really glad to see it. And even on the alternate, again, I have a very simple fix for it, but, I get what they're going for, and I think that drawing on those early 70s jerseys was a really good idea. And the updated stick in a rink logo, I think this is probably the best updated version we have seen so far.
Beepo, what do you think? You like the updated logo and the rest of your positives here?
Oh, yeah, the updated logo is great. Steve is actually the one who pointed out to me all of these differences, so I'm going to give him credit for that, but I'll just mention it now that, well, you mentioned the stick is a little bit more angled. The shaft of the stick is thinner, and the C is a lot more pronounced because it's kind of like the terminals on the C are a little bit higher up. It's like more centered. And I really like those upgrades to it for sure. I already talked about the home and roads a lot a couple weeks ago whenever they leaked. And again, even with the word mark, even before this, I think they were some of the best jerseys in the league. And that doesn't change at all. I still love them, especially that road jersey. Definitely one of my favorites in the league. The third jersey, I love it. It's a really nice combination. It's basically exactly what a heritage jersey I think should be, as long as it's not, if it's not called a throwback. It's a perfect blend of their original jerseys with the striping pattern and their current set with the number font and the updated logo. I love it. Aside from the couple nitpicks I mentioned in the negative section, I love it. And then for the spaghetti skate, I really do like that jersey. I'm not huge on the logo. It's very very reminiscent of its era, but understandably why. I don't think that thing should ever come back full time, but I definitely don't mind seeing the logo come back for a couple games. And the design of the jersey itself is beautiful. I don't think that's the color scheme for the Canucks to stick with full time. I think they've nailed it with what they have now, with the blue and green. I love that. But I would not mind seeing another team adopt that, the spaghetti skate color scheme. I don't know who, but I would not mind seeing another team adopt that. I love it. And I forgot to mention this with the home and roads, but I have nothing against the Orca, so I don't mind that they kept that either. It's honestly just a beautiful set of jerseys right there.
Steve, what are you loving about these jerseys?
What I do like is the upgrades. Getting rid of the Vancouver above the Orca. The new stick and rink logo, like Beepo stated. Me and him were talking about that when we first got on, and I just think it's a perfect update. It feels current, and just they did the tweaks that were necessary to it. So, as for this alternate, surprisingly, I really like this alternate, just because I think they did a pretty well job of combining things. They wanted to make it feel like a throwback, but they didn't want to make it a throwback, and I think they execute that pretty well. And just the fact that they're going to bring in the flying skate jersey with it again, and it just makes me all the much happier and making me want to buy either this jersey or a t-shirt. But I mean, overall, with everything, I don't think there were really any downgrades. I think it was really just improvements.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. I don't see any downgrades here. The alternate is definitely my favorite. I on its own, I give it a 9 out of 10. I love the update to the Stick and Rink logo, and it's featured on the front of the alternate jersey. I really like how the kind of the bottom half of the jersey is going to be this blue and green theme, and then once you get up, it's kind of a blue and white theme with a green trim. So I kind of like how that's working with each other there. I really love how they've done the collar on the alternate jersey. I think when you have to do a full collar with the Adidas collar, that's how you do it. The Maple Leafs did it with their Arenas jerseys a couple years ago, and I think it looks really awesome when you use the upper trim of the collar in the same color as the jersey, and then you use the thicker bottom part just as your collar color. So really loving what's going on there with the alternate. The updated font, it's still the Canucks font, which I have previously said I'm tired of, but they've kind of made it a little bit bigger, stretched it out here, so it's new. It's an update. I really like where that's headed. Forgot to mention the kind of perforated pattern on the back of the numbers. It represents the rain of Vancouver. It's the whatever. We got another ridiculous description there, so kind of happy I forgot to mention that because that's a bunch of bullshit there that we don't need to talk about. The home and the road, just happy that the white updated Stick and Rink logo patch is working on both jerseys. I think that's pretty cool. Getting rid of the Vancouver script is an upgrade. And the thing about the retro jersey, the spaghetti skate jersey, we're seeing it 3 times a year. For me, that's perfect. 4 would be too much. 5 would be too much, whatever. 3 is great. Hopefully they spread it out throughout the year. I don't know what the dates are going to be on that, but 3 is perfect.
3 games in a row.
Are they really doing 3 games in a row?
Oh, no, I'm just saying that would be kind of funny.
Just burn.
Isn't that what
First
Toronto
3
did with
games
the
of
St.
season.
Pat's?
I mean,
Well,
that
yeah,
makes
but
sense,
that's
though, 'cause
themed to a
because
day.
It's a holiday.
Yeah. So this is themed to a whole season of celebrations, 50th season celebrations. So here we go. Anyways, let's rate.
They should wear the throwback jersey 50 times because they're celebrating 50 years.
Well,
What do you think, man?
when we get to the Twitter responses, Beepo, there's going to be a lot of people who agree with you, who love this jersey. So we'll see. We'll get to
Including
that.
me.
We'll get to that in a second here. So let's.
Yes, the spaghetti skate good, orca bad people.
Yep, they're responded to our tweet, and we'll read those tweets in a second. But let's rate the entire set of 4 jerseys out of 10. I rate personally, if I'm breaking it down, I rated the alternate a 9, the throwback an 8, and then the home and the road both get a 7. So when I average that out, it comes out to an 8.2. So I'm going to be the one who's very specific this week with my ratings. The whole set gets an 8.2 from me. Sean.
I gotta give the home, the road, and the vintage jersey a 9, and then the alternate gets a 6.
You're going to have to do your own math there. I'm not doing math for you.
Hang on. Well, I'll get a calculator because I can't do this in my head. And while
Okay.
we're doing it, let's ask somebody else.
Yeah, Sean's going to calculate his score. Some math wizard who's listening already knows it and is yelling it at their iPod or whatever.
69.
Beepo, what's your rating out of 10 for the whole set here?
I think I'm going to give it an 8.7. The home and the roads honestly probably get a 9.5 from me. I love those things. The third and the throwback bring it down a little bit. I mean, honestly, if I actually rated them individually and took the rating, I feel like 8.7 might be low if I give the home and road a 9.5. But I'm just throwing out a number here. I don't feel like actually getting out a calculator and doing the math. I love them all, but the home and roads, I love them. I honestly need that road in my collection. I don't know why I don't have it yet.
Well, I have the number.
The new road, I understand why I don't have that because it's not for sale yet, but you know what I mean.
We hear you. All right. Hold on, Sean. We'll get to you. We'll get your number. But Steve looks ready and eager to give his number. So what's your rating for the whole set out of 10 here, Steve?
Solid 8.
A solid 8 from Steve. Sean, we've been waiting for your response. What's your rating?
The entire set averages out to a whopping 8.25. That's 3 9s and a 6.
And just to make it easier on myself, I'm just going to say 8.2. So that comes out to a total of, I'm doing math on the fly here, but anyways, it comes out to a total of the same score that Sean and I got, an 8.275. We'll round it up because we're being nice. An 8.3 average score amongst us for the entire set of Vancouver Canucks 2019-2020 season jerseys. So again, you want to take a look at these. There's a link in the episode description, or you can go to hockeyjerseyconcepts.com right now to check out the image. Okay, let's take a look at some of the reaction on Twitter to these Canucks jerseys. When we put out the tweet, Ben Remington gave a chant. Flying skate should be primary with claps in between each word. So that's going to be a sentiment that we hear going through all these tweets. From Luke Travis, really well done. Glad they're bringing back the black jersey. From Jersey Freak at uniforms are cool. The blue third is awful. The throwback is what they should be wearing full time. Small tweaks to the home and road are definite upgrades. From Ted Noakes, I am always a fan of the flying skate, but that blue third had the potential to be the club's best jersey ever. I foresee it and a white version soon being adopted as official jerseys. That wouldn't be too bad of a thing, but these new home and roads, they're just new, so we'll see how long they last, but Ted might be onto something there. Julian at JULM_82. I'm really not sure about the blue alternate. Still interested to see it in action. The black one is great, though. Orion Taylor, at Taylor Orion, he sent his version of what he would do with the alternate. He added a white stripe underneath the green stripe. So instead of having 2 green stripes, it's a green and white stripe. And he tweets, I wish the alternate added more contrast in the striping. It helps tie in with the home and away sweaters. That's a good point. And then Mike Bond also agreed with those sentiments. So that was the feedback that came in on Twitter after we tweeted out about the new Vancouver Canucks jerseys. Let's move on to our next topic. The St. Louis Blues have won the Stanley Cup, and kind of one of the fun things to talk about each year.
For the first time in biggest Golden Knights history.
Oh, boy. You love it. You're just going to beat that stat to death. I'm
going to beat that stat to death for the first time in Vegas Golden Knights.
Just take it. Just keep going. You may have taken it too far already, but you're on that horse, and it's a runaway horse. There's no stopping it. So once we get Stanley Cup champions each year.
I beat dead horses once they're way past dead. For the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history.
Oh, stop it. So we got the Stanley Cup hat and shirt. Specifically, we're talking about the locker room editions from Fanatics. We did this for the conference champions gear, and not too much has changed here. So we're looking at the hat and shirt. You want to take a look with us. Again, head on over to hockeyjerseyconcepts.com, or there's a link in the episode description. Taking a look at the hat, it's almost the same as the conference champions hat. Instead of saying champs, which the conference hat did, it says champions. And above that, it says 2019 Stanley Cup champions. Of course, it has the Blues logo on it. It's got the heather gray pattern on the front, as the conference champions hat did. But the conference champions hat had a white back, and the Stanley Cup champs hat has a black back. So Fanatics really changing it up here for the Stanley Cup champs hat. The shirt is actually it's cooler. It's got Stanley Cup champs on the front, so switches it up from hat to shirt. Of course, you got the Blues logo at the bottom. And then we kind of got an angled Stanley Cup above the word mark, as if the word mark is kind of raising the cup in celebration. And the shirt is heather gray. It's actually a really sharp shirt. But again, we're going to start with the negatives and end with the positives. Sean, we're going to you looking at the hat and shirt together for negatives.
Oh, holy crap, Fanatics. Can you do something original, like some color or something? I know it's hard because you want to have these done in, like, you want to have next year's ready for, like, the year coming, so you just shit out the same ones every year. But my God, are these uninspired. You know, I can think of a few reasons why they want to do this. It's because they're Fanatics and they suck. But it's the same shit every single year. But, and I'm mainly focusing on the hat here. And it isn't to say it's bad, and if you're a Blues fan, you shouldn't pick it up. You really should. The problem is, like, if the Blues were to win again, like, what are you going to do? Have the same shirt twice, but there's a 9 instead of an 8, and it looks a little different? Like throw some spirit into this. You ever seen the championship shirts from the 90s? You want to talk about looking insane. Like design something new every year and template it for each team. Don't just slap the same crap every single year. It just gets boring.
Yeah, it's it's uninspired, as you mentioned here. Beepo, the negatives for the locker room hat and shirt.
The hat is, again, I'm going to beat a dead horse here, but it's very plain. I mean, in a vacuum, it's not bad, especially if it was just like a additional piece of merchandise sold, like how they do that. They sell a lot of not locker room Stanley Cup champion merchandise. I don't think it would be bad if it was one of those, but it's just it just doesn't live up to the occasion for the actual locker room hat. The shirt, I have a lot less negatives on the shirt. I actually quite like the shirt. It still veers a little bit on the plain side, but I'm not entirely sure if that's a negative or a positive. So I'm going to put it as a half negative right now, and I'll explain a little bit more on the positives once I get to that.
All right, and Steve, your negatives for the locker room hat and shirt.
Really just what these guys have been saying. It doesn't feel unique. It feels reused. It feels like they just didn't want to spring the money or spring the time to actually make a new logo that everyone could enjoy. And, it just brings up that thought of, like, what are they going to do if they try to get this going again? Like, there's one website that I follow called, am I allowed to say it?
Sure.
Sure, it's Streaker Sports, and they kind of have like a 80s and 90s throwback feel, and they design their own championship shirt, and I threw it in with the guys. I believe it was yesterday I threw it in, but it is so much better than this. It is. I honestly, it baffles me because it feels like they cheap out when they do this kind of stuff,
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they rehashed the Champions word mark from the conference gear because it makes the Stanley Cup gear feel less important. Like, I would rather them go boring on the conference gear, which I thought they had, rather than reuse it for the Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup gear should feel more important. So that's my negative here. They're really going to town on this whole heather gray look. It is popular right now, but wow, they just used it everywhere they can.
Thanks, North America.
As far as the shirt goes, I think my only negative there is that the NHL logo appears 3 times in about a 1.5 foot square space. It's on the Stanley Cup Champions logo, which just uses the NHL logo. On the other side, we got the official NHL locker room logo. And then why not, at the top of the shirt, throw another NHL logo? So that's on there 3 times unnecessarily, but that's just corporate branding, and can't fight that. That's just going to happen. Let's end on the positives here, because I think there are still some positives for this hat and shirt. Especially the shirt. I think it's excellent. But Sean, what are your thoughts?
As much as I rag these for the whole heather gray thing, I mean, if it's the only heather gray hat you own, it's a good heather gray hat to own. There's a lot of them. 90% of them are terrible, but if you're a Blues fan, go out and get this hat. It'll be your only heather gray hat. They go with almost anything you wear, and it's simple, it's templated, and it's like, it really is a case of, if this is going to be the one you get it. As for the shirt, get the shirt. I really like as you mentioned, the cup over the thing. And I just like the color of it. I think that the Blues color scheme goes well with that locker room gray type thing. And you know what? I think that locker room tees, for the most part, should be a dark neutral color. I mean, if you don't want the locker room tee, they make blue ones, if you really want the team color one. But if you want, but for the locker room, I kind of get it. Like, it should be black or gray or whatever, to a point. So, I mean, in terms of that, it's a really good one. I mean, I do like it a little more than, to bring it back to the Raptors for a second. The Raptors ones were white. And while they're beautiful shirts, I don't think that white championship shirts really work. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of other sports do use the white championship shirt. So, like I mentioned, Fanatics is going to beat this heather gray fad going on right now to death. Beepo, the positives that you see from the hat and the shirt.
I'm going to bring up one more negative first that I kind of forgot about until you brought up the whole thing with the NHL logo. And I agree on that point, but I also just think it's a little bit too cluttered up front with the Stanley Cup Champs graphic and then the Champions logo down right below it to the right. Like, thanks, that's a little bit too much, or that's a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for?
Cluttered, busy, overkill.
Redundant, that's it. Yep, that's a little bit redundant. It says Stanley Cup Champs and tiny right next to it, Stanley Cup Champions. Yeah, I think we got it from the big part. Yeah. And then a fifth locker room thing to the left. Move the locker room thing to the left on the sleeve. Move the Stanley Cup Champions logo to like the back where the Adidas logo is on the jerseys, basically. That's what I would say to do. But to the positive, first of all, the logo is blue and gold instead of black and gold. Unless the black and gold logo is the Penguins, but that wasn't possible this year. So basically, good thing the Blues won and not the Bruins. But also, as I was mentioning in the negatives with the shirt, that it's a little bit on the plain side still. But I personally think that this falls on the plain side in the good way. Like, it could probably be on either side depending on what your personal opinion is. I think it's too plain to the point, or not too plain, but I think it's plain to the point where it's just enough. It's not too much. It's not too plain. It's not enough. It's just enough to work fine. I really like that they went with the word champs instead of champions because it really brings out emphasis to that word. I like that they used the same Stanley Cup script from the actual playoff and finals logo. And I like the Stanley Cup at an angle on top of it. I like how they use team colors in the word mark. I think the design of it is really nice. It would have been nice to see that a little bit bigger on the front of the shirt, but as for the design itself, and not including the extra elements below it and to the side of it and whatnot, I really like it personally. And the hat, I don't know if I mentioned the positives of the hat, but I mainly just like that it sticks with the whole brand that they've been going with this year. I think Champions could probably use to be in blue, but like I said, in a vacuum, it's a pretty nice design. It just doesn't necessarily live up to the occasion, but still, pretty nice design.
All right, and Steve finishes off with the positives for the locker room gear here.
I have to agree with Jets. It is for a heather gray hat, it is very classy. I do think the slanted cup above the Stanley Cup champs and the champs being in the Blues colors, I think that really does add a nice touch of personalization. I think it does a decent job as a shirt here. So the shirt didn't fail. It's not that these failed in any sort of way other than just feeling templated and plain. It's just that they're not super striking like what the Marlies had with the 108 stitches last year when we were talking about that. So, but I think overall, this isn't a bad shirt. This is a shirt you wouldn't necessarily not wear if you got it, if you bought it, or if someone got it for you. You'd wear it. It's just that it's not something that you want to... It's not a like a eye-catching design that people are gonna go out in droves just to get.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say anything new from what you guys have already said. Just summing up, the hat is mundane but not bad. The shirt, I really like how it's in the blues colors. We've talked about the cup at an angle, so I really like that. And you know what, the design kind of works on the shirt with the heather gray. So let's rate the shirt and the hat together as a package out of 10. I've come up with 7 as a fair rating for this combo. Sean, what do you have?
I'm going to give it a 6. I think that I'm going to be a little harsher on it because it's bland, it's vanilla, it's milk toast, and you kind of like it's a decent 6. It's one of those like, well, there's nothing offensive about it. There's nothing that drives me to think that it's terrible, but at the same time, there's nothing that makes me think it's good, and it's almost worse because you wish that there was an idea on there that makes it work, but there's nothing on this that really makes me say, oh man, there was an idea there, aside from maybe the t-shirt there. But yeah, I don't know. I think that, I think it's time for somebody at Fanatics to go, okay, let's try something new.
And we're going to Beepo for your rating out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 7 combined. I'd give the hat a 5 and the shirt about an 8. And while it doesn't exactly average out to 7, I'm just going to be a little bit more generous to it because I am quite a fan of the shirt. So I'm going to give it a 7 total.
And Steve, wrap us up here for a rating out of 10.
I'm going to go 6.5. It's not terrible, but it's not ultra amazing, so...
Okay, with Steve's 6.5 and everyone else's score, it averages out to a score of 6.6 for the hat and shirt Stanley Cup Champions locker room gear. The best part about this stuff is together, if you wanted both of them, it's going to cost you nearly $100 Canadian, which is excellent. Totally worth it. The shirt and hat are going to last a lifetime because they're quality pieces. And I'm totally bullshitting you. That's an absolutely bogus price for these 2 generic hats, hat and t-shirt combo. But, it's Fanatics. And
so that means it's like $5 American, right?
Yep, that's exactly the conversion rate. You nailed it. So it's worth the drive to head down to the States just to buy this stuff and drive back. And everything should be fine. It about equals out in gas there. So... there we have the Stanley Cup Champions gear, and we'll be back this time next year to review whoever wins it. It's hopefully Fanatics ups their game, or we have maybe Adidas step in for a year to do some gear, or we just get a different idea. I wonder if they're working on this stuff now for 2020. That would be interesting. If those designs are completed or in the works now, it would be about the proper time frame. So hopefully they're coming up with some great new ideas right now, or that we've switched companies. Going forward on this podcast, we still have fake or authentic. We're going to be looking at appetizers. Can't help but think of the dumbest things when I'm out with my hockey team. And we're going to be talking about your choice of appetizers coming up in fake or authentic. And of course, coming up as well, Throwback Throwdown. That 1970 St. Louis Blues jersey is ready to take on a new challenger in the Buffalo Sabres classic white jersey. So that's coming up on Throwback Throwdown. It's now time for fake or authentic. Fake or authentic? Fake or authentic? This is the part of the podcast where I give 3 statements, and it's up to our co-host to determine whether or not those statements are fake or authentic, just like the jerseys you see on fans' backs across the NHL. Fake or authentic number 1, At an all-you-can-eat buffet, they have just 2 items, wings and mozzarella sticks. You can only eat one of them. I choose the wings. Sean, fake or authentic?
That is 100% authentic. I mean, I love matzo sticks, don't get me wrong, but it's, between the two of them, it's an easy choice. Especially if they have think of it like a pop dispenser, except, it's dipping sauce, so you can make the dipping sauce equivalent of Spezzy.
Beepo, fake or authentic?
I'm going to go with a fake on this one. I absolutely love mozzarella sticks, especially if they're really good ones. I think Steve is the only one who has any of these nearby him, but Sheet's mozzarella sticks are incredible. And also the ones that they have at my school in the one cafe at my obviously none of you guys go there, but those are also really good mozzarella sticks, and I love a good mozzarella stick, so I will definitely take the mozzarella sticks. The only problem is that, it's not really a meal the way that wings are, but, I'm just going to avoid the technicalities of this question for once, and I'm just going to say mozzarella sticks.
It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, and you can just eat as many mozzarella sticks until you feel like you've had a meal, Beepo.
Yeah, but it still just doesn't seem like a meal. Maybe it's just me.
This is also like you go to a buffet and they have breadsticks there. It's all you can eat breadsticks.
But this buffet only has wings and mozzarella sticks. You can only choose one. Once you go into one side of the restaurant, that's the mozzarella sticks side of the restaurant. And if you go to the other side of the restaurants, that's the wings side. And you're not allowed to cross sides.
You're setting up a dark path on that. But
all right, well, Steve, I'm choosing the wings.
Next, we're gonna hear. Go ahead, Steve.
Officially, what was the question again?
Okay, so the full question, fake or authentic? At an all-you-can-eat buffet, they have just 2 items, wings and mozzarella sticks. You can only eat one of them. I choose wings, fake or authentic?
Are we getting technical down to the sauce, or is it multiple type of sauces?
You can make that choice yourself.
All right, because in that case, yes, I'm very particular about mozzarella sticks. Everybody does theirs differently, and it has to go good with the marinara, in my opinion. Sheetz does have good mozzarella sticks, I will admit that. But with wings around this area, it's how do I put it? I've become very particular about where I get wings, because anybody could throw a wing in a fryer and dunk it in buffalo sauce or barbecue sauce or whatever kind of sauce you want to dunk it in. But what I really have to say on here is I would choose... I'd have to go with the mozzarella sticks. So I'd have to go fake.
All right, 2 mozzarella sticks, 2 wings. We've solved absolutely nothing here, but that's all right. Fake or authentic isn't about solving issues. I don't even know what it's about. It's just a fun game.
It's about sitting on the fence.
Okay, Bob Ross, let's go.
It's a good time for people to sit on the fence. Fake or authentic?
Tomorrow we hear in the news a new restaurant opens in the Greater Toronto area. Ryan's all you can eat wings and mozzarella sticks.
Wings and sticks. All right, fake or authentic
so
number
guys,
2.
I drunkenly spent all my house money on a restaurant.
Fake or authentic number 2, an alumni member from the team that wins the Stanley Cup final should be the one to present the cup to the winning team. Sean, fake or authentic?
Now, depending on the team, this is where it gets tough. So when Carolina won, you had an obvious pick. It would be Ron Francis. But what do you do with St. Louis? Who gets to present it then?
Drunk Brett Hull.
Exactly. Done and done.
Or if Toronto, here's a good one. If Toronto wins.
The corpse of Tim Hortons.
Would it be Clark or Gilmore? Would you?
Gilmore would be good. You could even go back. Sittler, Salming, something like that.
Now, here's a better one. What if Vegas won last year? Then what would you do?
Neil.
Would you have just done last year, whenever they made the final?
That guy, that Russian.
Would you have just done one of the players they traded away at the deadline or something?
That Russian who went back home.
No, you'd find like one of the greatest Vegas Wrangler players that ended up in the NHL or something like that.
Wasn't England a Wrangler player who ended up in the NHL?
I think so.
Yes.
So Derek Englund presents the Stanley Cup to his own team.
Yep, that would be great.
Exactly.
And he was the alternate captain too. He accepted the conference championship last year. So
no, remember last year too. Everybody, whenever Vegas in the final, they were like, "Who's going to lift the cup for Vegas? Who's going to take the cup if they win?" Derek Englund presents the Stanley Cup to himself.
Yeah, we were awesome this year. Me, come and get the Stanley Cup, and he just
it's like he just holds it out to himself like Gary Bettman does.
Yeah,
and then he tosses it in the air, he skates to the other side and catches it.
All right, Sean, where'd you land on the alumni member? Fake or authentic?
I'm going to say authentic, just on the fact that it'd be funny to see who certain teams drag up, like a Minnesota one next year. You know, they drag up like Wes Walls or Brad Bombardier.
Only
or
you.
Nat.
Who now?
Yeah, only you want those guys. Only you want those guys, Sean.
Obscure guys, like you know what? If Florida wins,
we know who it would be with the Wild. They'd obviously call Mike Modano.
Yeah, actually, probably. Or John Case.
Madonna works for them now, doesn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Beepo, fake or authentic, an alumni member should hand the Stanley Cup winner the Stanley Cup.
I'm going to kind of sit on the fence with this one.
Yeah,
I was originally just kind of fake, but I think that this is an authentic if either one, this alumni player has won the Stanley Cup in their career, whether it be for that team or not, I'm not sure about. Or two, they currently work within the organization while still being an alumni. Because in another sense, if not, it just feels like they have the cup necessarily, like, I don't want to say that they don't deserve it, but you know what I mean, kind of? It just seems like, why are they doing this? You know what I mean? I just feel like it makes more sense if they actually work within the team or they've already won the cup on their own than, you know, hey, I have this cup in my hands, but I didn't actually do anything to win it, you know?
Well, they're just like a figurehead to present it. They're just a presenter, that's all. But Steve, fake or authentic, an alumni member to present the Stanley Cup?
You know what? I'm going to go authentic. I think that'd be a great freaking idea because I would love to see Hall down there drunk off his butt trying to hand it off to the guy and then him just all there, lifts it above his head.
Rips his shirt open and just takes the cup for a run.
God, and that picture where it looks like he's rubbing his nipples.
He had a good time at the Stanley Cup final this year.
I think he had the best time out of non-players, to be honest.
Definitely.
No, I think that'd be cool. Like, I know certain teams who haven't won the cup or certain teams who are newer, they would have to have someone, which then, you know, they would just insert legend player here, or they would obviously have Bettman do it. But it's kind of strange in the fact that with the Penguins, your basically greatest player of all time is the owner, so kind of happens because he kind of just stands there and then he's like the last person to hold it. So him essentially giving it off to say Sidney Crosby, if that were the case back then, I really don't think that would feel too weird to Pittsburghers and to Penguins fans in general.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right, let's get to our final fake or authentic here, and it always bothers me every year what a cringeworthy show the NHL Awards is. So, fake or authentic, the NHL Awards should be presented as a serious sports TV show like the draft, as opposed to trying to be an entertainment show like the Oscars or Emmys or Grammys or whatever. Sean, fake or authentic?
That's authentic to a point. I really don't think that style of humor really matches up with what my personal sense of humor is. You know, if the humor, I really wish it was really dry, like, you know, sort of. And if they were going to go for comedic, I'd really prefer like a Johnny Carson style NHL Awards.
I think if they were going to go for something comedic, it'd be great to have like the crew from Spittin' Chicklets to host the NHL Awards.
Oh, Jesus. Could you imagine?
That would be fantastic. Throw it on at 11 o'clock at night and just let them go. And it's an open bar.
That would just be...
I'm just thinking if Johnny Carson hosted it, that'd be friggin' God.
And the new NHL award for 2019, the best dick in the NHL.
Biggest wrench goes to...
Damn it, that's the word I was trying to remember. I've been listening to them a lot more lately, but I'm still not, like, you know, that familiar with everything.
Yeah.
So that's the word I was looking for, wrench.
I'm still trying to get into it. So, Sean, where'd you land on this? Fake or authentic?
I'd say authentic. I would prefer it to be a little bit more serious and a little bit more on... If it was to be jokes, I'd really want it to be on the nose and dry and, you know, not like just not basic. You know what I mean?
Dad joke level or...
Exactly. Like either dad joke level, dry, you know, deadpan, just anything but...
So family-oriented humor.
To a point. Like, you can do some really funny stuff with that. You know, but just anything other than like B-list SNL, like that's what it is. That's all it comes across as to me.
All right, Beepo, fake or authentic? NHL Awards should be presented as a serious sports TV show.
I think I'm going to say authentic as well, but not necessarily to the level that the draft is, because, I mean, in a certain sense, the awards are an entertainment show. I mean, I guess for hockey fans, you want to watch to see who won, but, like, other than that, what would be the point of watching? The league wants to make there another point to watching, and either they're trying and it's failing, or it does actually work, just not for us. Because, I mean, maybe... they must have a reason to keep continuing this, right? They must be getting some fans interested. Some people must like the way that it already is arranged. But yeah, I personally think that they should tone that down a little bit because it is a bit cringeworthy at times. But I don't think it should just be so dry that it's just like, and the winner of this award is blank. Okay, next award. The winner of this one is Connor McDavid. You know what I mean? There needs to be something exciting to watch it for. Mm-hmm. So whether they kind of have a couple of breaks in between, maybe like talk about the season, show some highlight clips from each player and what, stuff like that, which I think they kind of already do that to some degree, but they got to have something to keep viewers interested. But I'm going to say authentic on this one.
All right. Steve, fake or authentic about the NHL Awards being presented as a serious sports show?
I'm going to go authentic with you on this one. I think that those gentlemen should be treated like it's a black tie affair type thing. And granted, the Oscars, they try to throw in that humor, but the problem that I've always had with like the Emmys and the Oscars is that everything feels so staged, everything feels fake about it, and you end up getting people voting for things and you wonder how the heck they ended up winning that compared to someone else. So I think if they're going to do it like that, I think what it should be, honestly, is just a nice dinner at a well-established place, or have it set up somewhere to where it's an event that you could watch. You could get some guest speakers. You could see some highlights through it. But it's not going to be like it's not going to be like humor. I mean, yeah, you could have humor in it. You could have someone throw a slight jab or two at someone that's in the awards. But the way they have it now, it just feels forced sometimes. like I said, much like the Emmys or Oscars. So
Yeah.
I think if they relaxed it, or if they took it more seriously but left it open for humor, I feel it would feel more natural.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what they should do at the awards? Every time a new player wins one of the awards, they should announce the winner. And for the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history, the winner of this award is...
Not friggin' Beepo, I'll tell you that. Jesus.
Every time a new player wins the award, they just gotta say that.
All right. Well, that is Fake or Authentic for this episode. It is now time to move on to Throwback Throwdown. Here we go with Throwback Throwdown this week. This is a blue and gold battle. We have the reigning and defending and returning champion, the 1970 St. Louis Blues white jersey. And its challenger this week is the 1996 Buffalo Sabres white home jersey. This is a classic jersey that lots of people want to see come back. So I decided to put it up against our defending two-time champion, the 1970 St. Louis Blues jersey. To get a look at these jerseys, head on over to hockeyjerseyconcepts.com, or you can check out the link in the episode description. So the St. Louis jersey we know about, this is its third or fourth week on Throwback Throwdown. White jersey, classic blue and gold striping, and then the shoulder yokes is the unique part, thick blue stripe with a yellow stripe underneath it. That yellow stripe is outlined in blue, and then we got the vintage St. Louis Blues logo on the front. The Buffalo Sabres jersey, I probably don't need to describe it for you. Everyone's familiar with this, but I will anyways. This is the three-stripe pattern on the arms. It goes gold stripe in the middle and blue stripes on top and bottom of that. But on the hem, it's a blue stripe in the middle and gold stripes on the top and bottom of that. It has the classic blue and gold buffalo with the crossed swords logo, blue shoulder yokes with that same logo as the shoulder patch, and the shoulder yokes are outlined in gold. Again, you can go to hockeyjerseyconcepts.com to see these jerseys. St. Louis is our defending champion. Let's see who is going to be the winner this week. We'll start off with me. This is a pretty good battle. I do love that Buffalo jersey. It's classic. Maybe if this was the 2008 Winter Classic version, I would give it the win. But I got to stick with our champion here, St. Louis, on this one. Sean, looking at these two jerseys, who's your winner and why?
I'm going to make it a tie here. It's the Buffalo jersey. This is one of my favorites of all time. It's crisp. The stripes really stand out. You don't have a white on gold effect going on here. I actually like the mismatched stripes because of the big chunky cuffs. I also love that double stripe yoke. I even like the fact that the shoulder patch is the twice repeated primary logo. That's something you will never see work again.
Yeah, in the late 80s, Minnesota was doing it as well on their white jersey, and it just seemed to work, and it always worked for the Buffalo jersey here. So Sean's taking Buffalo. That's one for Buffalo. I give it to St. Louis. That's one for St. Louis. Beepo, who do you have here and why?
Well, I've mentioned in the past several weeks that with St. Louis's jersey, I think it's a really nice jersey, but the shoulder yoke is just a little too busy. With Buffalo, I think overall the jersey is a little bit better because it's a lot more simpler. That shoulder yoke isn't nearly as busy. But the thing that really kills it for me with Buffalo is that inconsistency. I can't stand it. Sean likes it. I don't know why. But there's a lot of things with Sean's opinions that I don't know why. And I think you guys can agree with me on that one.
Yep.
But it just, the inconsistency kills it for me. If the hem and the socks had the same pattern as the arms with yellow, white, blue instead of blue, white, yellow, then I think this jersey would be golden. But as it is, it's so close, but it bugs me too much to actually really like it. And also, this is kind of a side point, but Sean sent the other day in our chat a fake Sabres jersey, and the yoke stripe looked a little bit more Bruins Bobby Orr era-esque in how it cut off, and it was more like it didn't go all the way around and just kind of cut off on the chest. Kind of like what the Bruins or Blues have now, except squared off, and I really liked that. I really did. I think that would be something that would make this jersey look even a little bit better. But for now, for the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history, I'm going to have to give the St. Louis Blues a 2-1 lead in Fake or Authentic on episode 83 of the Jersey Nerds podcast.
All right, so it's sitting at 2-1 for St. Louis. We asked you guys, the listeners, to vote. That went out on Twitter and was also up on the website, putting up these two jerseys next to each other. And the winner, with 60% of the votes, was the Buffalo Sabres jersey. So that currently ties our score at 2-2. And I'm throwing it over to Steve. Steve, you have the honor, the privilege of deciding our Throwback Throwdown winner this week.
Jordan Tutu?
Okay, so while Buffalo's jersey is nice, it's classic styled, and this is something that I think everybody screams at Buffalo to bring back, I have to give it to St. Louis. It's
Boom.
Just the St. Louis jersey here. It just it has to be the yoke for me, because if you were to throw these two jerseys next to each other, if it were to have a plain yoke with the striping that it has on the hem and the sleeves, I'd be bored to death. But if you put the Blues yoke on the Bruins, or not the Bruins, sorry folks, a little tired, rough week, but if you put it on the Sabres jersey, it just wouldn't work. But otherwise, the Blues jersey would still work without that yoke, but that yoke improves it, in my opinion. And I think it's just a much more unique design. It's something that they still use, the Blues themselves, today with their current iteration jerseys. So I have to give it off to the Blues.
All right, so the winner for the third week in a row is the St. Louis Blues 1970 white jersey. It'll be back next week to take on a new challenger. I think 2 more wins, and we'll move it into kind of a Hall of Fame category. We don't want it going on forever, but...
Are you saying Burger King?
Are you saying the St. Louis Blues 1970 white jersey would be the first jersey in Vegas Golden Knights history to make it into the Jersey Nerds podcast Hall of Fame?
Please,
if that's what you want to say, yeah, if that's what you want to say, Beepo, you go ahead and you can say that.
Look, this has been a running joke for this podcast. We'll see if it comes back for next one. But for now, I'm not stopping until this podcast is over. And this podcast is going to be over very soon. So I'm going to be stopping.
When's your birthday again?
Me?
Yeah.
November 29th. And for the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history, I will be turning 21 this November.
Come around your birthday time, you're going to find a FedEx box. It's very, very long, very thin. And it's going to be about a 2-foot section of chain link fence. And
for me to sit on for the first time.
Yeah.
No, not the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history. I've sat on the fence before, but not literally.
So literally for the first time. And all right. So
for the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history, I would be literally sitting on a fence.
All right. This sounds like a good time to probably cut off the podcast here. I think Sean's falling asleep.
For the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history,
Beepo's
we're going to be Jersey Nerds podcast number 83.
Beepo's getting stupid. Steve's had a long week.
Stupid, Ryan. You don't need to say that. We already know that.
All right.
I've been drained and I have to give more energy. So
Sean didn't fall asleep. His internet's being slow, so he's being very sparse with what he's doing.
Save the bandwidth, man.
Saving that bandwidth. You know, remember.
That old maritime internet there.
Yeah.
No,
gotta get out the phone.
Landline. I'm using the internet.
Insert dial-up noise here.
Yeah. So that's our Throwback Throwdown for this week. Keep your eye on our Twitter account and the website as well, hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. We'll get the next vote up for the next challenger to this St. Louis Blues jersey. We'll see who can knock the Blues off their perch because they're riding high. Not only have they won the Stanley Cup, but they're the reigning and defending champion of Throwback Throwdown. So that's a pretty big deal. As I've been mentioning, we're going to get it set up here soon. Coming back will be the HJC mailbag, but the voicemail edition, we're going to do that via Skype. So heads up, that's coming back. That
For
is
the first time in Vegas Golden Knights history.
You had to.
We will have the HJC voicemail bag.
I was hoping that would not happen, but I should have known better. That one's on me. I should have known better. That's what we have for you this week. Be sure to subscribe and rate the Jersey Nerds podcast, and then you'll get notifications when new shows are posted. I'd like to thank Sean, Steve, and Beepo for joining me.
You're welcome,
and
Ryan.
Thank you to all the listeners for listening to this podcast. Goodbye, everybody.